hospital waiting room smelled like disinfectant and broken promises. I sat there, my hands folded in my lap, staring at the fluorescent lights overhead while my husband paced back and forth like a caged animal. His phone kept buzzing. He kept checking it, his face tight with worry that had nothing to do with me. "How much longer?" Marcus demanded, stopping in front of me. His voice was sharp, impatient. "Did you bring the papers?" I looked up at him. Marcus Chen, my husband of 6 years, still handsome at 35, with his sharp jawline and those dark eyes that used to look at me with warmth. Now they just looked past me, through me, like I was furniture that had outlived its usefulness. "I brought them," I said quietly, patting the leather folder on the chair beside me. "Good." He resumed pacing, glancing at his watch. "The notary will be here in 20 minutes. We need to get this done today, Naomi. Today. There's no time." No time. There was never any time anymore. Not for me, anyway. My name is Naomi Reyes Chen, and 3 weeks ago, my entire world changed. My grandmother, Lola Celeste, passed away at the age of 92 in her home in the Philippines. She had raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 8. She was my everything, my anchor, my safe harbor, and she left me everything she had. A modest house in Manila that had been in our family for generations, her jewelry collection, and most importantly, a stock portfolio worth approximately $3 million. My grandmother had been shrewd with money, investing wisely in Philippine telecommunications and real estate companies decades ago. Those investments had grown exponentially. I was a medical records administrator at Chicago General Hospital, making $42,000 a year. My husband Marcus was a financial analyst, pulling in about $80,000. We lived comfortably in a 2-bedroom condo in Lincoln Park, nothing extravagant, but we were getting by. When the lawyer called from Manila to tell me about the inheritance, I was in shock. $3 million. It was more money than I had ever imagined having. I told Marcus that night over dinner. I expected him to be happy, to celebrate with me, to mourn my grandmother with me. Instead, his eyes lit up with a calculation that made my stomach turn. $3 million, he repeated, setting down his fork. Naomi, do you understand what this means? We could pay off the condo. I could finally start my own investment firm. We could live the life we've always talked about. I nodded slowly. We could also set up a foundation in Lola's name. She always wanted to help children get an education. Marcus waved his hand dismissively. Sure. We can do charity stuff later. First, we need to be smart about this. Let me manage the portfolio. I'll move everything to better performing stocks, maximize the returns. Something in his tone made me hesitate. I want to keep some of Lola's original investments. They meant something to her. Naomi, don't be sentimental about money. That's how people stay poor. He reached across the table and took my hand, his smile warm and persuasive. Trust me, baby. This is what I do for a living. Let me take care of you. I wanted to trust him. I really did. But over the next 2 weeks, Marcus changed. He became obsessed with the inheritance, constantly asking when the funds would be transferred, when I would sign the authorization papers to give him access to the accounts. He drew up investment plans, spreadsheets, projections, and his phone started ringing at odd hours. It's work, he'd say, stepping out of the room. Client emergency. But I heard him once, late at night, whispering into the phone in the bathroom. The door was cracked and his voice carried. Just hold on a little longer, baby. I know it's hard. I know you're scared, but I'm going to take care of everything. The money's coming through. We'll have everything we need, I promise. Baby. He called someone baby. My heart stopped. My hands went cold. I stood outside that bathroom door, listening to my husband make promises to another woman, and something inside me died. But I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I started watching, paying attention, and I saw the signs I'd been too trusting to notice before. The late nights, at the office, the sudden need to go to the gym at 10 p.m., the way he angled his phone away from me when he texted, the new cologne, the extra care with his appearance. And then, 1 week ago, everything exploded. I came home early from work. My supervisor had sent me home because I looked pale, grief from Lola's death finally catching up with me. I walked into our condo at 2 p.m. Marcus was sitting on the couch, his head in his hands. He looked up when I entered, and his face was stricken, red from crying. Naomi, he said, his voice breaking. I need to tell you something. I set my purse down slowly. What is it? It's about Vanessa. Vanessa Park, his co-worker, the junior analyst at his firm. 26 years old, beautiful, ambitious. I'd met her at the company Christmas party last year. She'd been friendly, bubbly, full of energy. What about her? I asked, though I already knew. Deep down, I already knew. She's sick, Marcus's voice cracked. She has a brain tumor, meningioma. They found it 3 weeks ago. The same week, Lola died. She needs surgery, Marcus continued, standing up, walking toward me. Emergency surgery, but her insurance won't cover it all. The neurosurgeon they need, the specialist, he's out of network. The surgery will cost $250,000 out of pocket. I stared at him. And I love her, Naomi. There it was. The confession. Simple, brutal, delivered like a business report. We've been seeing each other for 8 months, Marcus said, and he had the audacity to look relieved to finally say it out loud. I didn't mean for it to happen, but she understands me in a way you never could. She's brilliant, driven, passionate about the same things I am. Get out, I whispered. Naomi, listen. Get out of my sight. I can't. He grabbed my shoulders. Vanessa's going to die if she doesn't get this surgery. The tumor is growing. They have a surgery slot in 5 days, but we need the money now. A deposit, today. I pushed his hands away. We? There is no we, not anymore. Your inheritance, Marcus said, and his eyes were desperate, pleading. Naomi, I know this is horrible. I know I've hurt you, but I'm begging you. I'm on my knees begging you. And he actually dropped to his knees right there in our living room. Please, save her life. You're a good person. You have a good heart. Don't let an innocent woman die because of my mistakes. I looked down at my husband, kneeling before me, using another woman's medical crisis to manipulate me, and I felt nothing. No pain, no anger, just a cold, clear emptiness. How much of my inheritance were you planning to steal? I asked calmly. He flinched. It's not stealing. We're married. What's yours is mine. Answer the question. All of it, he admitted. Eventually. Vanessa and I were going to start a life together. Use the money to launch the investment firm, but with her as my partner, not you. You'd get a divorce settlement, of course. I'm not a monster. But the bulk of it would go to building our future. Our future. Him and his mistress. And now she's sick, I said. Now she's dying. Marcus grabbed my hands. Naomi, please. I know you hate me right now. You have every right to. But Vanessa has nothing to do with this. She's innocent. She's just a young woman with her whole life ahead of her. Don't let her die because you're angry at me. The manipulation was masterful. Make me the villain if I refused. Make it about saving a life, not about funding his affair. I need to think, I said. There's no time to think, Marcus shouted, standing up. The deposit is due tomorrow. Tomorrow, Naomi. The surgery is scheduled for Friday. If we don't pay, she dies. Then I'll think quickly, I said, walking to the bedroom and closing the door. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands shaking, my mind racing. Marcus wanted me to sign over $250,000 to save his mistress, the woman he'd been cheating with for 8 months, and he expected me to do it because I was a good person. I picked up my phone and called the one person I could trust. 8 Naomi, my cousin Isabel answered on the second ring. She lived in Manila, worked as a corporate lawyer for one of the biggest firms in the Philippines. Belle, I said, my voice steady. I need your help. I need it now, and I need you to not ask questions until I explain everything. What's wrong? My husband is trying to steal my inheritance for his mistress, and I'm going to let him think he's succeeding. I told her everything, the affair, the sick mistress, Marcus's demand for the money, and as I spoke, a plan formed in my mind, cold, precise, devastating. I need you to do exactly what I tell you, I said to Isabel. Can you do that? 8, I will burn his world down for you, Isabel said, her voice fierce. Just tell me what you need. That was 3 days ago. Now I sat in this hospital waiting room, the notary on her way, the papers in my folder, and Marcus pacing like his life depended on it. It didn't. But he didn't know that yet. Before I continue, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you. And if this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. The notary arrived exactly on time. Barbara Chen, no relation to Marcus, despite the shared surname. She was a severe-looking woman in her 60s with steel gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Mr. and Mrs. Chen, she said, approaching us. That's us. Marcus practically lunged forward, shaking her hand. Thank you for coming on such short notice. I know it's unusual to do this at a hospital, but time is of the essence. So you explained on the phone, Barbara said, her tone neutral. She looked at me. Mrs. Chen, you're certain you want to proceed with this today? I'm certain, I said calmly. Marcus exhaled with relief. Thank you, Naomi, thank you. You don't know what this means. Oh, I knew exactly what it meant. We moved to a small private consultation room that Marcus had apparently reserved. The notary set up her materials on the table. Her seal, her stamp, her logbook. I'll need to see identification from both of you, she said. We provided our driver's licenses. She examined them carefully, made notes. Now, Mrs. Chen, I understand you're executing a power of attorney and a transfer authorization for your inheritance assets? That's correct, I said. Marcus had drawn up the documents himself, a limited power of attorney giving him authority to manage my inheritance, a wire transfer authorization to move $250,000 from my new account to an account he'd specified, supposedly the neurosurgeon's practice account. But I knew better. Last night, while Marcus slept, I'd checked his laptop. The account number was for a joint account he'd opened with Vanessa Park 2 months ago. They'd been planning this for a while, waiting for the right moment to drain my inheritance. May I review the document? The notary asked. Marcus handed them over eagerly. She read them slowly, carefully, her expression never changing. This is highly irregular, she said finally. Mrs. Chen, do you understand what you're signing? You're giving your husband complete control over a substantial inheritance with the authority to transfer funds at his discretion. I understand, I said. Are you under any duress? Any pressure to sign these documents? No, I lied smoothly. This is my choice. Marcus squeezed my hand. She's doing this to save a life. My colleague Vanessa needs emergency surgery. Naomi has the biggest heart of anyone I know. The notary's lips thinned slightly. She'd been doing this job long enough to smell a rat, but legally, if I said I was willing, there was nothing she could do. Very well, she said. Mrs. Chen, please sign here, here, and here. I picked up the pen. Marcus was practically vibrating with anticipation. I looked down at the documents, at the blank signature lines, and I signed, Naomi Reyes Chen, my full legal name, clear, legible, legally binding. Excellent, Marcus breathed. Now we can move forward. I need to witness Mrs. Chen's signature, the notary said, leaning forward to examine what I'd written. Her eyes narrowed. She looked up at me, then at Marcus, then back at the documents. Mr. Chen, she said slowly, I'm afraid I cannot notarize these documents. Marcus's face went white. What? Why not? Because your wife didn't sign them. What are you talking about? I just watched her sign. The notary turned the documents around so Marcus could see. There, on the signature line where it said, Naomi Reyes Chen, I had indeed signed. But I hadn't signed Naomi Reyes Chen. I had signed, coerced under duress, fraud, Naomi Reyes. What the hell is this? Marcus snatched the papers, staring at them in disbelief. That, I said calmly, is called an invalid signature. A signature given under duress, which I am clearly indicating, invalidates the entire document. The notary cannot legally certify it. You can't do this, Marcus yelled. Vanessa is dying. Is she? I asked, reaching into my folder and pulling out a different set of papers. Because according to this medical report I obtained yesterday, Vanessa Park's meningioma is benign, slow-growing, and her neurologist recommended watchful waiting, not emergency surgery. I slid the papers across the table. Marcus grabbed them, his hands shaking. His face went from white to red to purple. How did you? HIPAA has exceptions, I said. Especially when you're investigating fraud. Vanessa's own doctor confirmed it. She needs surgery eventually, yes, but it's not an emergency. There's no 5-day deadline. No out-of-network specialist demanding $250,000. Marcus slumped into his chair. You lied to me, I said, my voice cold and steady. You fabricated a medical emergency to steal my inheritance. You and Vanessa cooked up this scheme together. Naomi, I can explain. I don't want your explanations. I pulled out another document. I want you to look at this. It was a printout of bank records. The joint account Marcus had opened with Vanessa, deposits, withdrawals, a paper trail. You've been funneling our household money to this account for 6 months, I said. Money that was supposed to go to our mortgage, our bills. You've been stealing from us to fund your affair. It's not stealing, we're married. And here, I interrupted, pulling out more papers, are the credit, card statements, the hotel rooms, The jewelry you bought her. The weekend trip to the Bahamas you told me was a work conference. Each piece of evidence I laid on the table was another nail in his coffin. Marcus's face crumpled. Naomi, please. I made mistakes. I know I did. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We. I stood up, gathering my papers. There is no we, not anymore. I pulled out the final document from my folder. These are divorce papers. I filed them this morning. You're being served tomorrow, but I thought I'd give you a preview. Marcus grabbed the papers, scanning them desperately. You're asking for everything? He choked out. The condo, the car, half my pension? I'm asking for what's legally mine, I corrected. The condo down payment came from my savings. I have the bank records. The car is in my name. And in Illinois, infidelity can affect asset division, especially when there's evidence of financial misconduct. I looked at the notary, who was watching this entire scene with a mixture of professional detachment and personal satisfaction. Thank you for your time, Ms. Chen, I said. I'm sorry to have wasted it. Not wasted, she said, beginning to pack up her things. This is actually the most interesting call I've had all month. She stood, then paused, looking at Marcus with contempt. Mr. Chen, in 30 years of notarizing documents, I've seen a lot of people try to con their spouses out of money. You're not even in the top 10 most creative. You're just sad. She left. I turned to follow her. Naomi, wait! Marcus jumped up, blocking my path. You can't do this. That inheritance is half mine. We're still married. Not for long, I said. And actually, the inheritance is entirely mine. It was left to me individually, received during marriage, but classified as separate property under Illinois law because it was a gift from a blood relative. My lawyer confirmed it. Isabel had worked with a Chicago firm to ensure everything was airtight. Your name isn't on a single account, I continued. Not on the stocks, not on the property deed in Manila, nothing. You have no legal claim to any of it. Marcus's face twisted with rage. You think you're so smart? You think you're going to ruin me? I don't think, I said quietly. I know. I pulled out my phone and opened an email. This went out 1 hour ago to your boss, the compliance department at your firm, and the SEC. Marcus grabbed my phone, reading the screen. His face went ashen. Evidence of insider trading, I read aloud from memory. Based on confidential information received from Vanessa Park, who had access to pre-release earnings reports from her position in the research department. Trades made in the joint account you share with her, showing a pattern of buying and selling immediately before major announcements. That's not... It's exactly what it looks like, I said. Isabel found it. She's very good at forensic accounting. You and Vanessa have been trading on insider information for months. The SEC takes that very seriously. Marcus sank back into his chair, his face in his hands. You've destroyed me, he whispered. No, I said, my voice like ice. You destroyed yourself. I'm just making sure everyone sees the rubble. I walked to the door, then paused. Oh, and Marcus, Vanessa knows you were going to use her medical emergency to steal from me. I called her this morning, told her everything, sent her the bank records showing how you've been skimming from the account you share. She was very interested to learn you've been taking her money too. She wouldn't believe you. She already did. Check your phone. She's been calling you for the last hour. Marcus pulled out his phone. 17 missed calls, 23 text messages. I watched his face as he read them, watched the horror dawn as his mistress turned on him with the same viciousness he'd shown me. Have the life you deserve, I said, and walked out. I made it to my car before the shaking started, before the adrenaline wore off, and the reality hit. I sat in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel, breathing deeply. My phone rang. Isabel. 8? Did it work? It worked, I said, my voice unsteady. Everything worked. Good. I could hear the fierce satisfaction in her cousin's voice. Now tell me you got the recording. I held up the small recording device I'd had hidden in my purse the entire time. Every word Marcus said, every confession, every lie, all captured in crystal clear audio. Got it, I confirmed. Perfect. Send it to me. I'll forward it to your lawyer. With the documents, the bank records, and this recording, he won't get a single cent in the divorce. Probably going to need it for his legal defense anyway. I laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. Belle, I just destroyed my husband's entire life. No, Ate, he destroyed his own life when he decided to betray you. You just refused to be destroyed with him. I drove home, not to the condo I'd shared with Marcus, but to the small studio apartment I'd secretly rented 2 weeks ago when I first started planning this. Everything I truly cared about was already here, moved in boxes while Marcus was at work, thinking I suspected nothing. Inside, I sat on the edge of my new bed and finally let myself cry. Not for Marcus, not for our marriage, but for the woman I'd been who trusted so completely. For my grandmother, who I wished could have seen me stand up for myself. The next few months were a whirlwind of legal proceedings. Marcus tried to fight the divorce, claiming I'd entrapped him, that the recording was illegal. His lawyers argued that the inheritance should be split as marital property. They lost on every count. Illinois is a one-party consent state. My recording was perfectly legal. The inheritance, as predicted, was classified as separate property. And with evidence of his affair, his theft of marital funds, and the ongoing SEC investigation, Marcus had no leverage. Vanessa Park lost her job when the insider trading investigation went public. She turned state's evidence against Marcus, providing emails and text messages showing he'd coerced her into sharing confidential information. She got immunity. He got charged. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday morning in August. I walked out of the courthouse, a free woman, legally and financially intact. That afternoon, I received an email from the bank in Manila. The house sale had gone through. My grandmother's property had sold for far more than expected, adding another $1 million to my inheritance. I sat in a cafe, looking at the number on my phone screen. $4 million. More money than I'd ever imagined, and the freedom to use it however I wanted. I called Isabel. "The foundation," I said. "Let's do it. The Lola Celeste Education Foundation. Full scholarships for girls in the Philippines who lost their parents. Everything grandmother wanted." "You're sure?" Isabel asked gently. "You could invest it, grow it, live off it forever." "I am sure," I said. This money came from a woman who believed in second chances, who raised an orphan and gave her a future. It should do the same for others. "You're a good person, Ate Naomi," Isabel said softly. "No," I replied. "I'm just someone who knows what really matters." 6 months after the divorce, I was sitting in my new apartment, a bright 2-bedroom in Wicker Park with huge windows and hardwood floors. I'd quit my job at the hospital and now ran the foundation full-time. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it. It was a photo. A young girl in a school uniform smiling in front of a classroom. Below it, a message. "My daughter is the first in our family to go to high school. Thank you for the scholarship. You gave her a future." I saved the photo, adding it to the folder on my computer where I kept all the letters and messages from scholarship recipients. This was what grandmother's money was meant for. Not for Marcus's lies. Not for his mistress's fake emergency. But for this, for hope, for futures, for girls who deserved a chance. My phone rang, the ringtone I'd set for my lawyer. "Naomi, I've got news. The SEC case concluded. Marcus pleaded guilty to avoid trial. He's getting 3 years in federal prison and a permanent ban from the securities industry." 3 years! It should have felt like victory. Should have felt like justice. Instead, it just felt like the final page turning on a chapter I was glad to close. "Thank you for letting me know," I said. "There's more. He's trying to file for bankruptcy. Wants to discharge the debts from his legal fees and the fines. It won't affect you. The divorce settlement is protected. But I thought you should know. I appreciate it." After I hung up, I sat for a long time, thinking about the man I'd married, the man who'd seemed so charming, so ambitious, so full of potential. Had that man ever really existed? Or had I just seen what I wanted to see? It didn't matter now. I pulled out my laptop and opened my email. The Manila office had sent the quarterly report on the foundation. In 6 months, we'd awarded 43 scholarships. 43 girls now had the chance my grandmother had given me. That night, I dreamed of Lola Celeste. She was sitting in her garden in Manila, the one full of sampaguita flowers, wearing her favorite house dress. "You did good, anak," she said in Tagalog. "You used the money the right way." "I miss you, Lola," I said. "I know, but you're going to be okay. Better than okay. You're going to help so many children. That's the real inheritance, not the money, the love you pass on." I woke up with tears on my face, but for the first time in months, they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of peace. If this story is making your blood boil like mine was, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, the ending gets even better. Your support means everything to this channel. A year after the divorce, I was in Manila for the foundation's first anniversary celebration. We were hosting a ceremony at a high school in Quezon City, presenting scholarships to 20 new recipients. I stood on the stage, looking out at the crowd. Parents, students, teachers, all of them there because my grandmother had been wise and generous, because she'd believed in the power of education to transform lives. My Lola used to say, I began in English, then switched to Tagalog for the local audience, that money is only valuable if it creates value. She didn't mean investment returns or interest rates. She meant that money should build something that lasts longer than we do. I looked at the girls receiving scholarships, their faces bright with hope and determination. These young women are what lasts, I continued. Their education, their futures, their children and grandchildren who will benefit from the opportunities we're creating today. That's the real return on investment. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, at the reception, an older woman approached me. She had kind eyes and worn hands that spoke of years of hard work. Ma'am Naomi, she said hesitantly, I am Carla's mother, the girl who sent you the photo last year. I remember, I said warmly. How is Carla? She is top of her class. She wants to be a doctor. The woman's eyes filled with tears. When my husband died, I thought Carla's dreams died too. We had no money for school, but you gave her back her future. She took my hands in hers. I don't know what you sacrificed to create this foundation, but I want you to know it was worth it. You are changing lives. If only she knew what I'd sacrificed wasn't a sacrifice at all. It was just getting rid of dead weight. Your daughter earned this, I told her. The foundation just opened the door. She's the one walking through it. That night, I had dinner with Isabel and her family. We sat in a restaurant overlooking Manila Bay, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. You look happy, Ate, Isabel observed, sipping her calamansi juice. I am, I said, realizing it was true. For the first time in years, I actually am. Any regrets? I thought about it, about Marcus, about the marriage, about the moment I signed those papers with a signature that was and wasn't mine. None, I said. Everything happened exactly the way it needed to. My phone buzzed, an email notification. I opened it and froze. It was from the Illinois Department of Corrections, an automated notification that an inmate had added me to their approved contact list. Marcus. He wanted to write to me. Isabel saw my face. What is it? Marcus wants to contact me from prison. What are you going to do? I stared at the email for a long moment. Then I clicked delete. Nothing, I said. Absolutely nothing. He's not part of my life anymore. He doesn't get to be. I blocked the email address, blocked the prison notification system, and went back to my dinner. Isabel raised her glass. To moving forward. To moving forward, I echoed, clinking my glass against hers. 2 years after the divorce, the foundation had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. We'd expanded to 3 cities in the Philippines. We'd partnered with universities to provide college scholarships. We'd created a mentorship program connecting scholarship recipients with professional women in various fields. I'd also started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee here and there with men I met through foundation events or through friends. It felt strange at first, learning to trust again, learning to believe that not everyone had an ulterior motive. And then I met David. He was a volunteer at one of our Manila partner schools, teaching music to elementary students. American, like me, but he'd been living in the Philippines for 5 years, ever since he'd left his corporate job to do something meaningful. I was a hedge fund manager, he told me, over coffee at our 3rd meeting. Made obscene amounts of money. Was completely miserable. One day I just quit, sold everything, and bought a one-way ticket to Manila. Do you regret it? I asked. Not for a second. He smiled, and it was genuine, reaching all the way to his eyes. Some people think I'm crazy. They say I threw away my career. But I'd rather live on a teacher's salary doing something that matters than make millions doing something that hollows me out from the inside. I liked him. More than liked him. But I was cautious. I should tell you, I said on our 5th date, which had progressed to dinner and a walk along Roxas Boulevard. I'm not good at trust. My ex-husband, he really did a number on me. You don't have to tell me if you don't want to, David said gently. I want to. And I did. I told him everything. The inheritance, the fake medical emergency, the betrayal, the revenge. When I finished, David was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry that happened to you, he said finally. But I'm not sorry you fought back. What you did that took courage. Some people would say it was vindictive. Some people would be wrong. He stopped walking, turned to face me. You protected yourself and used your inheritance the way it was meant to be used. There's nothing vindictive about that. That's just justice. I looked at this man, really looked at him, at the kindness in his face, the integrity in his eyes. I'm scared, I admitted. Of what? Of being wrong again, of trusting the wrong person again. David took my hand. I can't promise I'll never hurt you. People hurt each other sometimes, even when they don't mean to. But I can promise I'll never lie to you, I'll never use you, and I'll never ever ask you to compromise who you are for my benefit. It was the most honest thing anyone had ever said to me. We took things slow, dating for a year before he asked me to be his girlfriend, another year before we moved in together. He never asked about the money, never suggested I invest in anything, never tried to manage my finances or control my decisions. When I told him I was thinking about expanding the foundation to Vietnam, he said, "That sounds amazing. How can I help?" When I mentioned wanting to buy a small condo in Chicago to have a home base in the States, he said, "That makes sense. Keep your options open. Not our condo. Not we should buy. Just supporting my decision." It was so different from Marcus, I sometimes had to remind myself this was normal. This was how healthy relationships worked. 3 years after the divorce, on the anniversary of the day I'd walked out of that hospital conference room, I was back in Chicago for a foundation board meeting. I decided to walk past the old condo, the one I'd shared with Marcus. I don't know why. Curiosity, maybe. Closure. It was a coffee shop now. The building had been converted into mixed-use retail and apartments. I stood outside, looking up at where our bedroom window used to be. A woman came out of the coffee shop, nearly bumping into me. "Sorry," she said, then paused. "Naomi?" I turned. It was Vanessa Park. She looked different, older, tired. Her hair was shorter, pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore scrubs like she was coming from or going to a healthcare job. "Vanessa," I said neutrally. An awkward silence hung between us. "I'm sorry," she said suddenly. "For everything. I know sorry doesn't fix anything, but I am. I was young and stupid, and I thought Marcus loved me. I thought we were going to have this amazing life together. And instead, I lost my career, my reputation, and learned that the man I thought loved me was just using me." She laughed bitterly. "I'm a medical assistant now. It's the only job I could get with my record. I'll never work in finance again." I should have felt satisfaction, vindication, but I just felt tired. "I hope you've learned from it," I said. "I have." "Vanessa, look down. I'm in therapy, trying to figure out why I made such destructive choices, trying to be better." "Good luck with that," I said, and I meant it. I started to walk away. "Naomi," Vanessa called. I turned back. "The foundation, the scholarship program. I read about it. What you're doing is beautiful. Marcus always said you were soft, too nice for your own good, but you're not soft, you're strong, stronger than both of us combined." I nodded and kept walking. Later, I told David about the encounter. "How did it feel?" he asked. "Seeing her." "Empty," I said. "Like looking at a stranger. Whatever anger I had, it's just gone now. She's not part of my life. Neither is Marcus. They're just people I used to know." "That's healing," David said, pulling me close. "That's what moving on looks like." He was right. 5 years after the divorce, the foundation celebrated a major milestone, our 100th scholarship recipient. The ceremony was held at the University of the Philippines in Diliman, and it was covered by national news. I gave an interview to a major newspaper. "Mrs. Chen?" the reporter asked. "Or should I say Miss Reyes?" "Naomi is fine," I said with a smile. I'd legally returned to my maiden name 3 years ago. "Naomi, this foundation has changed so many lives. What inspired you to create it?" I thought about how to answer. I could tell her about my grandmother, about the inheritance, about wanting to honor Lola's memory. But I decided to tell the truth. "I created this foundation because someone tried to steal my future," I said. "Someone I trusted betrayed me in the worst possible way, and when I fought back and won, I had a choice. I could use that victory for revenge, let bitterness poison the rest of my life, or I could turn it into something meaningful, something that would outlast the pain. So this is about more than just scholarships. This is about refusing to let betrayal define you. It's about taking something that was meant to destroy you and using it to build instead. Every girl who gets a scholarship, every future we help create, is proof that we are not the worst thing that ever happened to us. We are what we choose to build afterward." The interview went viral. I received thousands of messages from people around the world, women who'd been betrayed, divorced, financially abused. They told me my story gave them courage to fight back, to stand up, to reclaim their lives. I responded to as many as I could. "You are not alone," I wrote over and over. "You are stronger than you know, and you deserve better, always better." 7 years after the divorce, I married David in a small ceremony in Manila, surrounded by family, friends, and scholarship recipients who'd become like daughters to me. I wore my grandmother's wedding ring, the one Lola had worn for 60 years of marriage to my grandfather. David wore a simple gold band I'd chosen for him. We exchanged vows we'd written ourselves. "I promise to always see you," I said, my voice steady. "Not what I hope you are or what I wish you were, but who you actually are. And I promise that who you are will always be enough." "I promise to never make you smaller to make myself bigger," David said. "I promise to celebrate your strength, not fear it. And I promise that your dreams will always matter as much as mine." Isabel was my maid of honor. She whispered as I passed her on my way down the aisle. Lola would be so proud. I knew she was right. That night at the reception, I gave a toast. 7 years ago, I said, standing with David's hand in mine. I thought my life was over. I'd been betrayed by someone I loved. I'd learned that the future I'd imagined was built on lies, and I had a choice to make. I looked around the room, at the faces of people I loved, at the scholarship recipients who'd traveled to attend, at Isabel, who'd helped me fight back, at David, who'd shown me what real love looked like. I chose to build, I said, not to destroy, not to retreat, not to give up. To build. And everything I have now, every relationship, every success, every moment of happiness exists because I made that choice. I raised my glass. So here's to building, to refusing to let our worst moments define us, to turning pain into purpose, and to knowing that the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well. To living well, the room echoed. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story gave you the justice you needed to see, check out the other videos on screen. They're just as satisfying. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? See you in the next story. 10 years after the divorce, I received a letter. It was forwarded through my lawyer, who called to warn me before I opened it. "It's from Marcus Chen," he said. "He was released from prison 6 months ago. I wanted you to know before you read it, in case you don't want to." I held the unopened envelope in my hands. "Does he want money?" I asked. "I don't know. I didn't read it. It's addressed to you personally." I hung up and stared at the letter for a long time. Then I opened it. The handwriting was still the same, sharp, precise. "Naomi," it began. "No, dear, no pleasantries. I've spent a lot of time thinking about what to say to you. I've written this letter 100 times in my head, trying to find the right words. The truth is, there are no right words for what I did. I destroyed our marriage. I stole from you. I lied to you. I used your kindness and your trust as weapons against you. And when you fought back, I played the victim. I told myself you were vindictive, cruel, that you'd ruined my life out of spite. It took me 3 years in federal prison to understand that I ruined my own life, that everything that happened to me was a direct consequence of my own choices. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I'm not asking for money or help. I know I have no right to either. I'm writing because I wanted you to know that you were right. About everything. About me. About what I'd become. About the fact that I never valued you the way I should have. I read about the foundation. I saw the interview you did with the newspaper. I saw the woman you've become, the life you've built, and I finally understand what I threw away. I hope you're happy, Naomi. I genuinely do. You deserve every good thing that's come your way. I don't expect you to write back. I don't expect anything from you ever again. I just wanted you to know that you won, not because you destroyed me, but because you refused to let me destroy you. Marcus. I read the letter 3 times. Then I showed it to David. "What do you want to do with it?" he asked gently. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to write back, to tell Marcus that I'd forgiven him, that I'd moved on, that I hoped he found peace. But the larger part of me, the part that had learned hard lessons about boundaries and self-preservation, knew better. "Nothing," I said. "I don't want to do anything with it." I put the letter in a box in my closet with all the other mementos from that period of my life. The divorce papers, the notary's business card, the recording device I'd used in the hospital conference room, artifacts from a war I'd won so completely that even my enemy had surrendered. That night, I dreamed of my grandmother again. She was younger this time, the age she'd been when she took me in as an orphan child. "You did what I hoped you would," she said. "You took what I gave you and made it matter. I miss you every day, Lola." "I know, Anak, but look at what you've built. Look at all the children you've helped. That's me, living on through you. That's the best kind of inheritance." I woke up and went to my computer, opened the Foundation's database. 147 scholarship recipients now. Girls who were becoming doctors, lawyers, teachers, engineers. Girls who were breaking cycles of poverty, creating opportunities for their families, building futures. All because my grandmother had been wise. All because I'd refused to let betrayal break me. All because I'd signed my name wrong on purpose in a hospital conference room 10 years ago and watched a cruel man's world crumble. I closed my laptop and climbed back into bed next to David. "You okay?" he murmured sleepily. "Perfect," I said, and meant it. Because that was the truth Marcus would never understand, the lesson he'd learned too late. The best revenge isn't about destroying your enemy. It's about building a life so full, so meaningful, so completely yours that they become irrelevant. A footnote, a cautionary tale, a person you used to know once in another lifetime. I fell asleep smiling, knowing that somewhere in Manila, a girl I'd never met was going to school tomorrow on a scholarship funded by my grandmother's love and my refusal to be a victim. And that was worth more than all the revenge in the world. 15 years. After the divorce, I stood in the lobby of the newly opened Lola Celeste Center for Women's Empowerment in Quezon City. The building was 5 stories tall, modern glass and steel mixed with traditional Filipino architectural elements. It housed classrooms, a library, computer labs, counseling offices, and a small museum dedicated to my grandmother's life. This was the culmination of everything I'd worked toward. Not just scholarships anymore, but a complete support system for women and girls who needed it. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was scheduled for 10 o'clock. Government officials were coming. The mayor, representatives from partner universities, media from across the Philippines and internationally. But right now, at 7 in the morning, it was just me, standing in the empty lobby, looking at the bronze statue of my grandmother that stood in the center. The sculptor had captured her perfectly. Lola Celeste at 70, her face lined with wisdom and kindness, her hands outstretched in welcome. At the base of the statue, a plaque read, "She believed in second chances." "It's beautiful, Ate." I turned. Isabel walked toward me, carrying 2 cups of coffee from the cafe across the street. "I still can't believe it's real," I said, accepting the cup. 10 years ago, this was just a dream, a sketch on a napkin." "You made it real," Isabel said. "You and your stubbornness." I laughed. Lola always said I was the most stubborn child she ever met. She also said it would save your life one day. Isabel sipped her coffee. She was right. We stood together in silence, looking at the statue. "Did you hear?" Isabel asked after a moment. "Hear what?" "Marcus tried to contact the foundation 3 weeks ago. Sent an email to the general inbox asking if there were any employment opportunities." My stomach tightened. "What did you do?" "Nothing. I flagged it as spam and moved on. He's not part of this world, Ate. He doesn't get to be." I nodded slowly. "Does he know about the center? About today?" "Probably. It's been all over the news. But his name is on a permanent block list for all foundation communications and events. Security has his photo. He won't get anywhere near here." "Good," I said, and realized I meant it without anger, without fear. Just a simple boundary, firmly held. The ceremony was magnificent. The mayor spoke about economic empowerment and breaking cycles of poverty. The education minister praised the foundation's work. A representative from the UN Women's Program announced a new partnership. And then it was my turn. I walked to the podium, looking out at the crowd of over 300 people, scholarship recipients, their families, donors, volunteers, government officials, and journalists. David sat in the front row, smiling at me with that quiet pride that never failed to make my heart swell. 15 years ago, I began, I was a different person. I was someone who believed that love meant sacrifice, that being a good wife meant making yourself smaller so your husband could feel bigger. That trust meant never questioning, never doubting, never protecting yourself. The crowd was silent, attentive. And then I inherited $3 million from my grandmother, and the man I was married to demanded I sign it over to save his mistress's life, a mistress I didn't know existed. a medical emergency that turned out to be a lie designed to steal my inheritance. I saw some people shift uncomfortably. The story had been told in interviews, in articles, but never quite so directly. I could have signed those papers, I continued. Part of me wanted to, because I'd been conditioned to believe that a good woman sacrifices everything, even her own future, for the man she loves. But I didn't sign. Instead, I signed something else. I signed my name in a way that invalidated the entire document and started a chain of events that exposed every lie, every theft, every betrayal. I paused, letting the words settle. Some people called what I did vindictive. They said I was cruel for destroying my husband's career, for sending him to prison, for taking everything in the divorce. They said I should have been more forgiving, more understanding, more compassionate. I looked directly at the cameras recording this for broadcast. To those people, I say this: protecting yourself is not vindictive. Exposing fraud is not cruel. Refusing to be victimized is not a lack of compassion. It is the highest form of self-love. It is saying, my life, my future, my well-being matters. The applause started then, building like a wave. This building, I continued, gesturing around us, exists because I refused to be a victim, because I took money that was meant to be stolen from me and used it to change lives. Every woman who walks through these doors, every girl who receives a scholarship, every family lifted out of poverty, they exist because I said no. I looked at the statue of my grandmother. My Lola taught me that money is only valuable if it creates value. But she taught me something else too, something I didn't understand until I needed it most, that the most valuable thing we own is our dignity, and we must never, ever sell it. Not for love, not for peace, not for anything. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. After the ceremony, there was a reception in the center's community room. I moved through the crowd, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, listening to stories from scholarship recipients about their achievements. A young woman approached me, maybe 25, with a small child on her hip. Ms. Reyes, she said hesitantly. I'm Carla. I was one of your first scholarship recipients, 10 years ago. Carla, I remembered her, bright, determined, from a small fishing village. How are you? I'm a doctor now, she said, her eyes shining. Pediatrics. I just finished my residency at Philippine General Hospital. That's wonderful. Because of you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Because you believed in me when no one else did. I grew up watching my mother get beaten by my father, watching her stay because she had no education, no job, no way to leave. I promised myself I would never be trapped like that. She shifted the child to your other hip. This is my daughter, Celeste. I named her after your grandmother, and I'm raising her to know that her future belongs to her, that no one, no man, no circumstance can take it away unless she lets them. I had to blink back tears. This was why everything had been worth it. As the reception wound down, Isabel pulled me aside. There's someone who wants to see you, she said quietly. I told them absolutely not, but they're insisting. They said it's important. Who? Vanessa Park. I froze. What? Why is she here? How did she even get in? She's not inside. She's outside the building. She's been waiting for 3 hours. Security kept her out, but she says she won't leave until she speaks with you. I looked at David, who had joined us. You don't have to see her, he said firmly. You don't owe her anything. He was right. I didn't. But curiosity won out. 5 minutes, I said. Outside, with security present, that's it. Vanessa was standing across the street from the center's entrance, leaning against a lamppost. She looked older than when I'd last seen her 12 years ago. Her hair was graying. She wore a simple dress and carried a worn purse. I walked out with David on one side and a security guard on the other. Vanessa, I said neutrally. She straightened immediately. Naomi, thank you for seeing me. I know you didn't have to. You have 5 minutes. I came to say congratulations on the center, on everything you've built, and to give you this. She held out an envelope. I didn't take it. What is it? A check. $20,000. It's everything I've saved over the last 12 years. I want to donate it to the foundation. I stared at her. Why? Because I owe you more than I could ever repay, Vanessa said, her voice shaking. What Marcus and I did to you, what we tried to take, it was unforgivable. I've spent over a decade trying to become someone who deserves forgiveness, even though I know I'll never get it. She held out the envelope again. I work 2 jobs. I'm a medical assistant during the day, and I clean offices at night. I live in a studio apartment and I drive a car that's 20 years old. Every extra dollar I've made, I've saved because I wanted to give it to you, to your foundation, to at least do something good with money I earned honestly. I looked at the envelope, then at Vanessa's face. She was crying. I was 26 when I started the affair with Marcus, she said. I thought I was so mature, so sophisticated. I thought we were in love. I believed everything he told me about how you didn't understand him, how the marriage was dead, how you were keeping him from his full potential. That's not an excuse, I said, coldly. I know. There is no excuse. I made my choices. I helped him plan to steal from you. I participated in the lie about my surgery. I was complicit in everything. She wiped her eyes. And I've paid for it. I'll pay for it for the rest of my life. But I wanted you to know that I understand now what I destroyed. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I took the envelope. Inside was indeed a check for $20,000, made out to the Lola Celeste Education Foundation. I'll accept this, I said slowly. But not from you. Vanessa looked confused. I'll accept this as a donation from an anonymous contributor who wants to support women's education. Your name will not be associated with the foundation in any way. You don't get redemption from this. You don't get recognition. You don't get a plaque or a tax receipt with your name on it or the feeling that you've made amends. Vanessa nodded, fresh tears streaming down her face. I understand. And after today, you don't contact me ever again. You don't come to foundation events. You don't send letters or emails. You take this 5 minutes and you use it to close this door forever. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Thank you, Naomi. Thank you for even listening. I turned to walk away, then paused. Vanessa? She looked up hopefully. The woman you were at 26, the one who thought stealing someone else's husband and their future was acceptable. I hope she's dead. I hope you killed her and became someone better, because that's the only way any of this means anything. She is, Vanessa said. I promise you, she is. I nodded and walked back into the center, David's hand warm in mine. Are you okay? He asked. I'm perfect, I said. And I was. That evening, after all the guests had left and the center was locked up for the night, David and I sat on the steps outside, watching the sun set over Quezon City. Do you ever wonder what your life would have been like if Marcus had just been a good husband? David asked. If he'd never cheated, never tried to steal the inheritance? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I'd probably still be working at the hospital, I said, coming home exhausted every night to make dinner while Marcus played on his phone. I'd probably have talked myself into believing that was enough, that a mediocre marriage was the best I deserved. And the foundation wouldn't exist. The center wouldn't exist. None of those girls would have scholarships. I'd have $3 million sitting in a bank account. Or more likely, Marcus would have eventually convinced me to let him invest it and lost it all in some stupid scheme. I leaned my head on David's shoulder. His betrayal was the best thing that ever happened to me, I said, because it forced me to see my own strength. It forced me to fight, and fighting for myself taught me that I was worth fighting for. You would have figured that out eventually, David said. Maybe. Or maybe I would have stayed in that slow motion drowning for the rest of my life, telling myself I was fine while I suffocated. I sat up, looking at him. I'm grateful, in a weird way. Grateful that Marcus showed me exactly who he was before I wasted any more years on him. Grateful that I had the resources to fight back. Grateful that I got out. David kissed my forehead. You didn't just get out. You won. We won, I corrected. Every girl who gets a scholarship, every woman who walks through those doors tomorrow and learns she can build a different life, they're all winning too. That night, back at our hotel, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything that had happened, everyone who'd played a part in bringing me to this moment. At 2 a.m, I got up and wrote an email. It was addressed to the warden at the federal prison where Marcus had served his time. I asked for his last known address. They sent it to me 3 days later, along with a note that inmates' post-release contact information was public record. Marcus was living in Gary, Indiana, a small city outside Chicago, known for its struggling economy and abandoned buildings. I stared at the address for a long time. Then I wrote a letter. Marcus, it began. I received your letter from 5 years ago. I never responded because I didn't know what to say. I'm still not sure I do. But the opening of the Lola Celeste Center has me thinking about endings and beginnings, about justice and mercy. You said in your letter that you finally understand what you threw away. I don't think you do. You think you threw away a woman, a marriage, a comfortable life. But what you really threw away was the chance to be part of something meaningful. If you had been a good husband, if you had supported me instead of betraying me, we could have built the foundation together. We could have changed lives together. You could have used your financial expertise for something that mattered instead of for insider trading and theft. Instead, you chose greed. You chose a mistress who was using you the same way you were using me. You chose to see me as an obstacle instead of a partner. I'm not writing to forgive you. I'm writing to tell you that I've moved on completely. I have a husband who loves me, who celebrates my success instead of feeling threatened by it. I have work that fulfills me. I have a life that matters. And you have whatever life you've built in Gary, Indiana. I hope it's a good one. I genuinely do, because the best revenge isn't your suffering, it's my happiness. I'm happy, Marcus, completely, thoroughly, genuinely happy. And I never think about you anymore, except when something like this anniversary makes me reflect on how far I've come. This is the last communication you will ever receive from me. I'm sending it not because you deserve closure, but because I need to definitively close this chapter. What you did to me 15 years ago set me free. You meant to destroy me, but you actually destroyed. The small, scared version of me that would have stayed with you forever. You destroyed the woman who thought she didn't deserve better. And from those ashes, I built something beautiful. So thank you, in the most twisted way possible, for being exactly who you were, for showing me exactly what I needed to escape from. Goodbye, Marcus. Don't write back. Naomi Reyes Santos. I added David's last name at the end. I'd legally taken it when we married, wanting to fully shed the Chen identity. I sealed the letter, addressed it, and put it in the mail the next morning. 3 weeks later, I received a response. It was a single page, handwritten on cheap lined paper. Naomi, you're right. I don't understand what I threw away. I don't think I ever will. But I'm glad you're happy. I mean that. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. I'm working at a warehouse. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. I have no friends, no relationships. I lost everything, and I deserve to lose it. But I wanted you to know that every day, I think about those scholarship recipients I read about online, the girls whose lives are different because of what you built. And I think about the fact that I could have been part of that. I could have helped. I could have been the man who stood next to you at ribbon-cutting ceremonies instead of the man who tried to steal your future. That's the real punishment. Not the prison time, not the poverty, but knowing what I could have been if I'd just been decent. I won't write again. Take care of yourself. M. I read the letter once, then put it in the same box with all the other artifacts from that time. Then I closed the box and put it on the highest shelf in my closet. Done. Finished. Over. 20 years after the divorce, the foundation celebrated, awarding its 1,000th scholarship. The recipient was a 17-year-old girl from Mindanao named Maria. She'd lost both parents to Typhoon Yolanda and had been raising her 3 younger siblings while going to school. "What will you study?" I asked her at the ceremony. "Law," she said with fierce determination. "I want to fight for families like mine, families who lose everything and have no one to help them navigate the system." "You'll be an amazing lawyer," I told her. "Because of you," she said. "Because you fought back. Everyone knows your story, Ma'am Naomi. Every scholarship girl knows about the husband who tried to steal your inheritance and how you destroyed him instead. You taught us that we're allowed to fight." I hugged her, this fierce young woman who reminded me so much of myself at that age, angry and determined and ready to change the world. Later, David found me standing alone in the center's meditation garden, looking at the plaques honoring major donors. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "I'm thinking that if someone had told me 20 years ago that the worst day of my life would lead to this, I wouldn't have believed them." I gestured at the building, at the gardens, at the plaques, bearing the names of 1,000 scholarship recipients. "All of this exists because I refused to sign my name the way Marcus wanted me to. All of this exists because you're stubborn and brilliant and brave," David corrected. I wasn't brave. I was angry. Anger can be a form of bravery when it's righteous anger, when it's anger at injustice. He took my hand. "You were angry at being treated like you didn't matter, and you used that anger to build a world where girls learn they matter more than anything." That night, I had the dream about my grandmother one last time. She was sitting in her garden, just as I remembered her, surrounded by sampaguita flowers. "Are you proud of me, Lola?" I asked. So proud, Anak, she said. So very proud. You took what I gave you and multiplied it 1,000 times over. I miss you. I'm always here, she touched my chest, over my heart. In every choice you make to be strong, in every girl you help, in every time you stand up and say, I matter, that's me, living on through you. What do I do now? I asked. We've achieved everything we set out to do. The center is built. The 1,000th scholarship is awarded. What's next? Lola smiled. You live, Anak. You enjoy the life you fought so hard for. You love your husband. You help more girls. You wake up every morning and remember that you are free. That's what's next. Freedom. Every single day. I woke up crying, but they were good tears. David stirred beside me. Bad dream? No, I said, snuggling closer to him. The best dream. Lola said I could stop fighting now, that I could just live. Sounds like good advice, David murmured, already drifting back to sleep. I lay there in the dark, listening to his breathing, thinking about the long journey from that hospital conference room to this moment. 20 years, a lifetime, and tomorrow I would wake up and go to the foundation offices and help more girls build their futures. But tonight, right now, I was just Naomi. Not Naomi the founder, not Naomi the betrayed wife who got revenge, not Naomi the scholarship program director, just Naomi, a woman who'd learned the hard way that she was worth fighting for, and who'd built an entire empire on that single, crucial truth. I smiled in the darkness and closed my eyes. Somewhere in Gary, Indiana, Marcus was probably lying awake too, thinking about what could have been. And somewhere in Quezon City, 1,000 girls slept peacefully, their futures secure because one woman had refused to be a victim. The math worked out perfectly. One man's betrayal had created 1,000 futures, and that, I thought as sleep finally claimed me, was the best revenge of all.